some point after midnight on the morning of May 26, 2026, a couple drove into a residential neighborhood in northeastern Harris County, Texas. They were there to pick up a baby. The exchange was supposed to be routine, the kind of arrangement that gets made between adults navigating complicated circumstances, a child, a father, a scheduled visit. Come, get the baby, leave. It took less than a few minutes for everything to change. By the time Harris County Precinct 3 deputies arrived at Blue Timbers Court, a man was down in the roadway. Investigators would spend the following hours and days working to understand how a custody pickup had become a homicide scene. You're watching Guilty Crime Files, where real cases involving ordinary people reveal warning signs too important to ignore. Like, subscribe, and share, because awareness could save a life.
The shooting happened in northeast Harris County on Tuesday morning when police say the couple went to pick up a child and it ended in gunfire. ABC 13's Maya Shea is live at the downtown jail with the story. Maya?
Yeah, it's really just such a tragedy. Gary Davis is charged with murder. He's in the Harris County Jail tonight. He is accused of killing this beloved music teacher from Port Arthur, Texas, and eyewitnesses tell us about the gunfire they heard.
Port Arthur, Texas sits along the Gulf Coast about an hour east of Houston, a city shaped by the refinery industry, by football, by community. People who grow up there tend to stay connected to it or find their way back. Marlon Sanders grew up in Port Arthur. He went to Memorial High School where he would later coach. He built a life there, teaching, playing music, showing up. By the spring of 2026, Sanders was 36 years old. He had been employed by Port Arthur Independent School District for more than 7 years. His primary role was as a music teacher at Lucian Adams Elementary School, a campus on the north end of the city named for a World War II Medal of Honor recipient. He also served as a football and basketball coach at Memorial High School. He was, by all documented accounts, embedded in the fabric of his community in a way that went beyond job description. People who worked alongside him described something consistent. He was present. Not just physically. He showed up to things, stayed late, remembered names. Dr. Shailunda Filer, the principal at Lucian Adams Elementary, said she saw it from the moment she first met him at teacher orientation. She recalled that he genuinely cared, not performatively, but in the way that becomes visible over time through behavior and consistency.
He actually cared. It was a genuine care that he had for people and children. He cared about if he met you, if you had any part dealings with him, he had a heart.
Port Arthur ISD's athletic director, Andre Bevel, described Sanders in terms that suggested someone more than a co-worker. He called him a confidant, a person you could lean on. He described him, in his own words, as a big teddy bear.
It's a surreal moment. I hadn't seen many individuals come into Marlon's life or into his space with a negative or angry attitude or mentality. He's always been someone that I call a big teddy bear, someone you can lean on, a confidant.
Outside of school, Sanders was also a musician, a singer, a DJ, someone who moved through the cultural life of his community in more than one register. His work as an educator and his work as a performer were, for the people who knew him, parts of the same person. He was married. He and his wife had a history, not entirely linear, as relationships sometimes aren't. And in the months before his death, that complicated history had created a set of circumstances that would come to define what happened on Blue Timbers Court. Court records, as later reviewed by investigators and reported by multiple news outlets, established a sequence of events that predated the shooting by several years. At some point approximately 3 years before May 2026, Marlon Sanders and his wife separated. During that separation, his wife began a relationship with another man, Gary Davis, 38, a Harris County resident. That relationship produced a child, a baby girl, who, by the time of the incident, was approximately 9 months old. The reconciliation between Sanders and his wife occurred after the pregnancy. According to court records cited in coverage of the case, the couple chose to get back together following the birth of their daughter's half-sibling. Sanders and his wife made a decision, together, to allow Davis to have a relationship with the infant, his biological child. Visitation arrangements were established. This is the kind of arrangement that exists in many families. Imperfect, negotiated, made in the interest of a child. Investigators later reviewed these documented circumstances as foundational context for understanding why all three adults were in the same location on the night of May 25th into May 26th. What investigators did not have, at least not initially, was a clear picture of what was happening between Davis and his ex in the hours before the shooting. In the days before the shooting, Sanders' wife had brought the baby to Gary Davis so he could spend time with her. This was, by all indications, part of the established arrangement. A planned visit, a few days long. Then, as she and Marlon Sanders were traveling to pick the child up, something changed. According to court records cited in the investigation, Davis began sending text messages to his ex's phone. The content of those messages became significant to investigators, not because they were ambiguous, but because they were specific. In those texts, Davis told her he was, in his own documented words, on that type of time. He also threatened, according to those records, not to give the baby back. Investigators and prosecutors would later focus on these communications as direct evidence of Davis's state of mind in the period immediately before the confrontation. The phrase itself, on that type of time, is a colloquial expression used to signal an intent to escalate, to act out, to make a situation volatile. In the context of what followed, those words would become part of the documented record of this case. Sanders' wife received these messages. The couple continued toward Blue Timbers Court. The address, the 12700 block of Blue Timbers Court, sits in northeastern Harris County, near the intersection of C.E. King Parkway and East Little York Road. A residential area. A neighborhood. Sanders and his wife arrived. According to the documented account, Sanders waited near their vehicle while his wife went to retrieve the baby. Davis's mother came out of the home carrying the infant. Then, from inside the house, Sanders' wife heard Davis's voice. "Who you out there with?" She did not answer. She took the baby and walked away from the house. Gary Davis came out of the residence. He was armed. According to court records and the subsequent statement of Harris County Sheriff Ed Gonzalez, Davis ran toward Sanders' vehicle and fired twice. Marlon Sanders, standing near the vehicle in the roadway, was struck. Davis then got into a separate vehicle and drove away from the scene. Bookmark go back. While leaving, he called his ex's phone. According to reports, when she handed the phone to a deputy who had arrived at the scene, Davis ended the call. That detail, the call placed during a flight from the scene, ended when a law enforcement officer answered, would become part of the investigation. The 911 call came in just after midnight. Harris County Precinct 3 constable deputies were dispatched to Blue Timbers Court. When they arrived, Marlon Sanders was in the roadway with a gunshot wound. Life-saving measures were attempted at the scene. Sanders was transported by ambulance to a hospital. He was pronounced dead there. The Harris County Sheriff's Office responded with a full investigative deployment. Crime scene investigators, homicide detectives, the Violent Criminals Apprehension Team, known as VCAT, K-9 units, and air support. The scale of that response matters. These are not units dispatched to minor incidents. The VCAT unit specifically exists to locate and apprehend violent offenders. Their activation, alongside air support, indicated that at the point of their deployment, the shooter had not yet been found. The scene on Blue Timbers Court became a crime scene, documented, preserved, examined. The investigation had several anchors from the outset. First, there were witnesses. Sanders' wife had been present. She had heard the words Davis said before he emerged from the house. She had seen what happened in the roadway. Her account, cross-referenced with the physical evidence at the scene, gave investigators a starting point. Second, there were the text messages. Court records indicated that Davis had texted his ex-girlfriend in the period immediately before the shooting, communications that documented his emotional state and his stated intentions. In a case built around a confrontation that unfolded quickly and without other independent witnesses, that digital record was significant. It established not only what Davis had communicated before arriving at the confrontation, but when he had communicated it. Third, there was Davis's behavior immediately after the shooting, getting into a vehicle and leaving the scene. placing a call to his ex, then ending it when a deputy answered. This sequence of actions, flight, communication attempt, immediate disconnection upon contact with law enforcement, was documented and would later become part of the evidentiary picture. What investigators were reconstructing was not a mystery in the traditional sense. The identity of the suspect was known almost immediately. What the investigation required was documentation, corroboration of witness accounts, collection and preservation of physical evidence, verification of the digital communications, and a timeline that could support a murder charge. Sheriff Ed Gonzalez later characterized the work as a collaborative effort. He specifically acknowledged the contributions of VCAT, K9, and air support in the investigation and apprehension. Language that suggests Davis's location after leaving the scene required active effort to determine. Gary Davis, 38, was arrested and charged with murder in connection with the death of Marlon Sanders. He was booked into the Harris County Jail. As of the reporting available, following the arrest, no bond had been set. Prosecutors filed a motion requesting that the court deny bond entirely, a step typically taken in cases where the state believes the defendant poses a continued risk, or where the severity of the offense warrants it. The charge of murder under Texas law applies to a person who intentionally or knowingly causes the death of another individual. The specific allegations that Davis armed himself, approached Sanders' vehicle, and fired at Sanders twice form the documented basis for that charge. Davis's date of birth is listed in court records as January 26, 1988. As of the time this documentary was researched and produced, the case remains in its pretrial stage. No arraignment outcome, no trial date, and no additional charges have been publicly reported. All allegations against Davis are at this stage unproven in court. He is presumed innocent under the law until proven otherwise. Port Arthur learned of Marlon Sanders' death on Wednesday morning, May 27th. Port Arthur ISD issued a statement that day. It was not a form letter. It named him specifically. His role at Adams Elementary, his position on the coaching staff at Memorial, his life as a musician and DJ. The district extended condolences and invited the community to share memories. They linked to video footage of Sanders leading a choir performance with his elementary students in 2025, and to a clip from the football season program. Dr. Shalunda Filer, principal at Lucian Adams Elementary, spoke publicly. She described the moment she had first met Sanders at a teacher orientation, and the quality that defined his 7 years on her staff. She said he actually cared. She said it was genuine. Andre Bevel, the district's athletic director, said that learning of Sanders' death was surreal. He noted that he had spoken with Sanders recently, coached alongside him, led alongside him. He described a man he called a confidant, a person others leaned on. Within hours of the news reaching the Adams Elementary campus, something unexpected arrived. More than 20 raised garden containers, part of a long-stalled campus beautification project called the Garden of Hope, an initiative that had been delayed since Hurricane Harvey struck years earlier. Pastor Wanda L. Bodden of the Nehemiah Crew, a community support organization, coordinated the delivery. The timing was coincidental. The garden had been planned before Sanders' death, but the containers arrived on the same day the school learned he was gone. The campus, a 7-acre school for elementary-aged children, now navigating grief alongside their regular day, received both news simultaneously: the loss of a teacher and the arrival of a garden meant to restore something. These are the kinds of details that resist summarization. What the investigators ultimately documented was not a sudden, random act. It was the end of a sequence, one that had begun years earlier with a separation, had moved through the formation and dissolution of another relationship, had produced a child, had reached an uneasy truce through a co-parenting arrangement, and had, in the hours before May 26th, shown clear signs of volatility in the documented text messages Davis sent. Marlon Sanders was standing next to his vehicle. He had driven with his wife to retrieve a baby. He was waiting. He had not entered Davis's home. By all documented accounts, he did nothing to initiate the confrontation. He was 36 years old. He had 7 years of teaching behind him. A student choir, a coaching staff, a wife, a community that knew his name. The investigation would continue. Davis would face a court process. The legal system would work through its stages. But the thing that cannot be reconstructed, the thing that no evidentiary record restores, is ordinary time. A teacher preparing for the end of a school year, a couple working through a complicated situation. A 9-month-old child who will grow up with a documented record of the night her father was killed during a custody exchange that was supposed to take a few minutes. That is what the record shows. Thanks for watching Guilty Crime Files. These are cases involving ordinary people, and that's exactly why they matter. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, because the right knowledge could save a life.